why I gave a bird assignment, and I was a little disappointed at the number of people who didn't take the time to look at birds outside of their home. Birds are excellent examples of oftentimes species that are generalists, that they are doing well in our urban, thriving environments. We have webcams on falcons on skyscrapers, and all the movies kind of portray like pigeons in the parks, and so we have definitely not all birds, but many birds lie in that generalist zone. Not all of them. Okay. But birds that are generalists, okay, tend to do well in our urban areas. Okay. Urban environments can still experience species richness. It's just not usually as high. And some of that is because we have these exotic plants and wildlife in the area. We want certain grasses to grow that may not be native. So we bring in sods, manicured lawns. We bring in cats and dogs and wildlife that aren't naturally from there. I mentioned rats already. Okay. So the wildlife species kind of get used to it, though. And the dominant species is always the human, though, in these urban areas. And I just really like this picture because this really displays they really have problems with moose in Alaska. And, you wait until the moose moves on for you to go to your car. North Jersey has not a bear problem, has a human wildlife conflict problem with bear. If you leave your dumpster open, they are going to scavenge. And I can't imagine like having that mountain lion be like at the door with my cat. I don't even know. And we know I mentioned, Feed the Birds at the landfill in New Jersey, right here at our ACUA landfill facility. They're one of the few places that do night filling. The landfill is covered during the day. The trash, the waste, the actual pit is covered during the day because that's when the birds would feed, and we have an airport nearby. So to prevent conflict between our airport and our birds and the waste, they do night filling. So they actually put the trash into that landfill at night and then cover it during the day because at night the birds aren't there feeding. So that's one management strategy we've put into place when dealing with urban generalist species, like a lot of the different gulls. These interactions, we talked about that leading conflict, alligators, a huge human conflict there. Generally they want food, and an adult human is really probably not their first pick unless you seem weak or injured and you're in their water. But once they're on land, they're not often running down an adult. But your dog, your cat, your cousin, little kids, yeah. And then humans decide to go feed them. And I can't even imagine these hummingbirds are awesome. I can't imagine having one land on me. And I also don't want to feed but I call them roof rats, even though that's not their name. Squirrels. I don't know if I've ever wanted a whooping crane in my kitchen, but a lot of humans enjoy the interactions, and then we're modifying the wildlife. So some conflicts, not so good, right? I don't want the squirrel to eat my wiring. I was back at Absegami years ago now, and we had a squirrel day. A squirrel got into the big transformer, and it caught on fire, blew it up. Okay? So we were off school the next day because they didn't have the parts to fix it. And so a squirrel really did ruin our electricity in the building for the day. People all the time have to put mouse traps out, right? Or bait, or because the mice are like, oh, your house is nice and warm. Let me come in your crawl space or basement. Car accidents. I mean, they're unfortunate. They're awful. But even the most aware driver can't always predict that deer is coming out of the woods right then and there. So I really like this set of notes. That's why I'm making this one an Edpuzzle. Like, I just feel like there was a lot of things that we recognize that we do a lot of management to try and prevent these interactions. I don't know how I would feel about petting a moose on my front yard. I'm still thinking about that. I have had a raccoon get in my house before. Cut open the screen door. Okay? It was just a screen door. It was a summer night. We didn't have air conditioning. And got into the kitchen cabinets and opened the flour and opened the potato chips. And there was flour all over the house. You could see little raccoon paw prints everywhere. So when we look at people and wildlife, look, it's expensive to control and manage these conflicts. People spend a lot of money, when their car gets hit by a deer. Unfortunately, they're safe, or prevention and control of these conflicts. And a lot of people, the seagulls and the Canadian geese that no longer leave because we've gave them these lovely green meadows that we call a soccer field, or our football field, right? These are problems, and we consider these organisms then pests. And it's a way we have to find ways to manage them. And our first instinct to just kill them off is probably not the best choice, right? So we really have to look at how to go about managing these organisms. And some of it is modifying the animal behavior themselves. Okay, it's expensive, it's not easy, but relocate them, sterilize them, prevent them from overpopulating since we took away their natural predator. Sometimes we need to recover the species, and it's going to be a high political and social cost to do that because we destroyed their populations. Encouraging proper animal husbandry, whether it's livestock or pets, spaying and neutering, don't ditch your cat or dog on the side of the road, those things, trying to put fences up when that's the appropriate choice. We look at areas of political influence, though, in townships when we're trying to create the right zoning laws and how to regulate who should be in charge of an area and what can be built when and where. We already talked about, the lethal control. Yeah, it's often the fastest, easiest way to remove what we think is a human-wildlife conflict problem that we think is causing us a problem. I don't know that it's the best choice. When we look at culling, we know now, they are allowing for wolves and coyotes in some areas to be hunted again because we did restore their populations. So if there's a conflict, the farmer, the hunter could remove that organism. In some areas of South Africa, not currently, but they have a few years back, I believe, and I have to check my facts on that one, have allowed elephants to be culled. Now, again, I don't think it was this year, but in the past couple of years they have, because the populations were just too plentiful for the humans' interaction. And then we discuss wolves, and this comes up, and I have this in the notes, under endangered species and when they should stop being protected. These organisms have gotten a bad rap for a very long time, but we did start to bring their populations back. Then we look at the give and the take of it all. So the government has taken to reimbursing people at times, agricultural industry, when there has been property damage. These cash incentives to be kind, okay? Or to kind of like, oh, we know they ate 2 of your cow, but we'll pay for them. Don't go kill it. And that's a hard situation to deal with because, ranchers, that's their livelihood. So we have had success in bringing certain organisms back, despite the conflict, and the wolves are the one I was discussing. So what's the future looking like? What's going to happen in the future of urban wildlife management? Look, politics are a big factor in this. How humans are deciding to live is a big factor in this. I like the idea of that tiny house nation, and the idea that many, not just in the United States, but many people globally are recognizing this movement back to having a smaller footprint. Not necessarily living with less, although that might be a better choice too, but designing and planning with the environment in mind. So the last thing you're looking at now is what is a link that I have posted on the Google Classroom as well. You're going to go to urbanwildlifegroup.org and you're going to look at their projects. I want you to read 5 of the overviews. They're not terribly long, they're paragraph in length. And then in your Cornell notes, I want you to answer for each project, what is the research project goal? So you'll have 5 project goal, as a kind of wrap up for you to see what's going on in urban wildlife as far as both volunteer and paid and programs and organizations that are really looking to study our human-wildlife conflict more thoroughly. So thank you. Go ahead and use those links appropriately for urban wildlife groups and complete the assignment. Remember to work in your Cornell notes for this unit as well.